It's official. President Trump thinks that Sir Keir Starmer is a weak man. When asked about Starmer's regime, a senior White House source said they are just weak. Apparently, President Trump is actually very angry with Sir Keir Starmer for not backing him more on Venezuela. Now, what's interesting is that today, this happened. The US seized, well, what was originally, I think, a Venezuelan oil tanker, but it was flying the Russian flag, wasn't it, in European waters, and they used military bases in Britain to do it. Yeah, that tanker was flying the Russian flag and was being escorted by the Russian Navy. So this is obviously a very serious issue. And then these headlines started emerging. British spy planes and vessels helped support the US in capturing that ship, which again is interesting because today at Prime Minister's Questions, Sir Keir Starmer was asked directly about when he actually last spoke to President Trump.
In relation to security guarantees and the American role and our dialogue with the Americans, I can assure the House I spoke to President Trump twice over the Christmas period in relation to this specific issue.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. This is real. President Donald Trump views Keir Starmer as a weak leader. Just hours ago, a senior White House source confirmed what many have feared for months. Asked about the British Prime Minister's government, the reply was blunt and devastating. They're just weak. 3 words that have torn apart the so-called special relationship, and what followed laid bare Britain's humiliation on the world stage. As Trump moved to seize Russian-flagged oil tankers using British military bases, as U.S. forces reportedly captured Nicolas Maduro from his Venezuelan compound, as the White House openly threatened military action against Greenland, our Prime Minister couldn't even get through to the President. He was left speaking to staffers, to aides, to assistants, the leader of the United Kingdom, reduced to an afterthought.
Trump and/or message for Governor Walz.
Who was that? You mean the draft-dodging coward? I don't call him by name. He's the draft-dodging coward who, when it was his time to serve his country, he did what all rich white boys did. I wasn't a rich white boy. I grew up in South Minneapolis. Most of me and all my friends are Vietnam veterans. We had to go. But the rich white boys never had to go, did they? And he didn't have to go, did he? And yet he's going to tell me what courage is?
He is leaving messages while the most powerful man on earth reshapes the global order without him. And the question every British citizen should now be asking is terrifying in its simplicity. When did we become so irrelevant that America does not even bother to call? The confrontation erupted during Prime Minister's Questions, and what unfolded in the House of Commons exposed a crisis of leadership that will echo through British history. Keir Starmer stood at the dispatch box facing direct questions about when he had last spoken to President Trump regarding security guarantees and America's role in global affairs. His answer sent shockwaves through Westminster. He confirmed that his last direct conversation with the president had taken place during the Christmas period. That was weeks ago. Since then, the world has been transformed beyond recognition. Since those Christmas conversations, President Trump has ordered the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. American B, 2 stealth bombers armed with massive bunker-busting munitions, struck deep inside Iranian territory, degrading enrichment infrastructure and setting back Tehran's nuclear program by months, possibly years. Since then, U.S. Special Forces carried out one of the most audacious military operations in modern history, breaching Nicolas Maduro's fortified compound in Caracas and extracting the Venezuelan president and his wife for transfer to New York to face narcotics charges. Since then, the White House has openly threatened to use military force to seize Greenland from Denmark, a fellow NATO ally. And through all of this, through every earth-shattering development, President Trump has apparently not felt the need to speak directly to Britain's Prime Minister. The implications became even starker when Trump used British military bases to capture the Russian-flagged tanker Marinera in the North Atlantic. RAF surveillance aircraft and the Royal Fleet Auxiliary Vessel Tide Force supported American forces in seizing a ship flying a Russian flag and escorted by Russian naval vessels. Yet the Prime Minister was not consulted in advance. Defense Secretary John Healey confirmed British involvement after the operation was complete, praising professionalism of our forces. But the decision to act, the planning, and the execution all happened without Downing Street in the loop. Trump simply used our assets and did not bother to inform a man supposedly running our country. The senior political correspondent at the Daily Express described what happened at Prime Minister's questions as utterly humiliating. He revealed that on Monday the government's own spokesman had told journalists that Starmer would try to speak with President Trump after the Paris summit, the so-called coalition of the willing meeting on Ukraine. But when pressed on Wednesday about what conversations had actually taken place, the truth emerged. All the Prime Minister managed to achieve was speaking to a couple of White House staffers, not the President, not the Secretary of State. Staffers. If the leader of the United Kingdom can only get through to aides when requesting time with the American president, that represents a catastrophic deterioration in our most important diplomatic relationship. The reasons behind this collapse are becoming painfully clear. Trump does not respect Starmer because Starmer cannot be trusted to align with American interests. The evidence is mounting and damning. When Trump launched strikes against Venezuela, Britain received no advance consultation. Starmer publicly stated that the United Kingdom had no involvement in the Venezuela operation and was not part of the Iran strikes. While the United States coordinated closely with regional partners in the Middle East ahead of the Iran operation, Britain was deliberately excluded. This was not accidental. It reflects a clear judgment in Washington that Starmer's government cannot be relied upon for unreserved alignment or airtight operational security in high-risk missions. The United Kingdom's formal recognition of the state of Palestine infuriated the Americans. Trump himself confirmed during his state visit that this was one of his few disagreements with the British Prime Minister. The Americans are also deeply concerned about what they see as growing restrictions on free speech in Britain, rules that affect not just British citizens, but American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens operating in the UK. A former Trump administration official was even recorded making a brutal remark about Britain under Labour, suggesting that if any Western country were to become the first Islamist nuclear power, it might be the UK. Whether fair or not, it reflects genuine sentiment within Trump's inner circle about the direction of British governance. The problem for Starmer is that he has positioned himself as a political jellyfish, drifting with whichever current seems most convenient. He tries to be on the side of Gaza and the side of Israel at the same time. He courts China while wanting America to like him. He says he will not reverse Brexit, then does everything possible to drag Britain back into the European Union's orbit. Just days ago, he announced closer alignment with the EU single market, setting up a direct political confrontation with Nigel Farage. But this pivot towards Europe comes precisely as Trump is demanding that allies choose sides. The president has made clear that European countries must dramatically increase defense spending, impose major tariffs on Chinese goods, and cut energy purchases from Russia. Starmer has shown no willingness to meet these demands with the urgency Trump expects. The coalition of the willing summit in Paris captured Britain's precarious position perfectly. European leaders gathered to discuss Ukraine, floating ideas of boots on the ground and planes in the air. Starmer aligned himself with this European bloc. But within hours of the summit ending, Trump dismissed the entire exercise. He does not care what Europe thinks. Asked whether he would take military action off the table regarding Greenland, his response was chilling. He would meet Denmark next week, but offered no assurances. The White House then confirmed that acquiring Greenland is a U.S. national security priority and that military force remains an option. Consider what this means for Britain. Our Prime Minister warned Trump not to pursue Greenland. Trump responded that he does not care, that America wants it and may use force to take it. He even suggested that it could come down to a choice between NATO and Greenland, implying that the alliance would be toothless without U.S. involvement. When the leader of the free world dismisses your concerns within hours, threatens military action against your allies, and cannot even be bothered to return your calls, you are not in a position of strength. You are in a position of irrelevance. And it is not just Trump who sees Starmer as weak. The British public has reached the same. And it is not just Trump who sees Starmer as weak. The British public has reached the same conclusion with stunning speed. Reform UK now polls at 34% nationally, with some surveys projecting Nigel Farage's party winning an unprecedented 445 seats. Starmer's net approval rating has collapsed to -54, placing him alongside Boris Johnson on Resignation Day and Jeremy Corbyn at his lowest point. A majority of those who voted Labour just 18 months ago now view their own prime minister unfavorably. It takes remarkable political talent to alienate your own supporters this completely. Farage has seized on the Venezuela crisis to expose Starmer's paralysis. When Trump ordered the capture of Maduro, the prime minister took hours to respond. When he finally did, the statement was mealy-mouthed and noncommittal. Labour MP Emily Thornberry, chair of the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee, publicly rebuked her own government, saying the strikes and the capture of a foreign leader were clear breaches of international law. "We condemn Putin for violating sovereignty," she said. "So we must make clear that Donald Trump should not be doing it either." Even Farage admitted Trump's actions ran contrary to international law. But Starmer will not condemn them. He cannot. He is trapped between his human rights lawyer instincts and his desperation to remain in Trump's good graces. The result is paralysis that satisfies no one. Greens leader Zach Polanski accused both Starmer and Farage of subservience, saying they draped themselves in flags while placing loyalty to Trump above all else, whether you agree or not. His words reflect a growing belief that British leadership has become reactive rather than principled, following American power instead of defending British interests. What makes this especially dangerous is that Starmer has spent enormous time and political capital trying to cultivate Trump, and it has failed. He offered an unprecedented second state visit, complete with royal pageantry. He increased defense spending. He avoided public confrontations. He flattered the president at every opportunity. His national security advisor, Jonathan Powell, often described in Whitehall as a real foreign secretary, pursued a strategy of quiet influence behind closed doors. The idea was that Britain could shape American policy through relationships rather than rhetoric. That theory has now been tested and found wanting. On Venezuela, Britain was not consulted. On Iran, Britain was not consulted. On Greenland, Trump ignored European leaders entirely. When he sees an oil tanker using British bases, Downing Street was informed only after the fact. The pattern is unmistakable. Trump sees Britain as useful for our bases, our intelligence, our diplomatic cover, but he does not see Starmer as someone whose opinion matters. The special relationship has become a relationship of convenience, access when needed, ignored when not. Britain now stands at a crossroads. For decades we believed we could bridge the Atlantic, close to America, while remaining connected to Europe. That balancing act worked when U.S. administrations respected alliances and multilateral norms. It cannot survive when the American president views the world as a contest of domination. In this new order, you either align completely with American power or accept marginalization. There is no middle ground, and Starmer appears incapable of choosing. The seizure of the Russian-flagged tanker Marinera will be remembered as the moment Britain's humiliation became undeniable. In the early hours of January 7th, 2026, U.S. forces boarded the vessel in the North Atlantic, 190 miles off Iceland. It had changed its name, painted a Russian flag on its hull, and sailed under naval escort. None of it mattered. When Trump wants something, he takes it. Navy SEALs descended onto the moving ship from helicopters. P-8 Poseidon aircraft and AC-130J gunships provided cover. Russian vessels nearby did nothing. Moscow protested, calling it illegal, but protests mean little without power to enforce them. And what made the operation most significant for Britain was this. We helped, but we were not asked. We were told. British aircraft were deployed. A Royal Fleet auxiliary vessel supported the operation. Our bases were used. Yet the decision was made in Washington without consultation. This is the special relationship under Keir Starmer. We provide the facilities. America provides the decisions. We are useful but not important. Allies but not partners. Tolerated but not respected. And the final humiliation is this. Starmer cannot even protest publicly because he needs Trump far more than Trump needs him.